Before we begin, I want to let you know that this narrative explores some mature themes. It delves into the challenges of new motherhood, family relationships, and infidelity. If any of this feels uncomfortable, you may prefer to pass on this. 1. So there, I stood in my kitchen that morning, my fingers gliding over the cool granite countertop. The fridge hummed more than usual, perhaps due to the stillness around me. Or maybe it was the weight of the circumstances that led me here, this home, this existence, this instant where everything finally appeared to be in place. For an extended period, I lacked stability in my life. It was only Chase and me transitioning, from one small apartment to the next, attempting to make every dollar count. I recall evenings spent on a worn-out couch, staring at unpaid bills, hoping he wouldn't notice the fear in my eyes. Yet he consistently did. From a young age, Chase had an uncanny ability to understand me completely. He would nestle into my lap, encircle me with his arms, and assure me that everything would be fine. And in some way, it always remained so. Chase's father departed before. He had even celebrated his first birthday. It's nothing to worry about. There was no grand farewell, just a man who stepped away from our lives and never returned. I once believed I'd catch glimpses of him in Chase as he grew. But Chase turned out to be different. He wasn't distant or evasive. He chose to stay. We all chose to stay. In those days, our space was limited, making it impossible to keep secrets with those thin walls. We shared everything. I addressed all his inquiries, no matter how uncomfortable, and he confided in me about matters most kids would conceal from their parents. That was simply our reality. We truly supported one another, and that connection remained steadfast as he matured. Wow, he really bulked up. I never sensed that I was losing him. As his friends ventured out to stir up mischief, Chase chose to stay in with me. He enjoyed simply spending time together, talking and sharing those terrible jokes that somehow still made me laugh. I cherished his presence, perhaps excessively at times. I believe that's a significant reason I became so passionate about fitness. Not merely for appearance, but to feel powerful, as if I was truly prepared for anything. Prepared to face any challenge ahead, I began running each morning, lifting weights, and finally prioritizing my well-being as I always should have. Do you want to know something? It was successful. I experienced an improvement in my well-being. My appearance enhanced, and others began to take notice. The surge of confidence transformed me. It ignited a desire for more than mere survival. I decided to purchase this house, the one filled with spacelight and tranquility. I made a vow to myself, to let go of any guilt. I earned this, and so did Chase. Then I indulged in a hot tub. Initially, it seemed somewhat excessive to invest that amount in something like that. It was somewhat over the top. Yet, given all that I had experienced, it simply felt appropriate. I brought it up to Chase prior to placing my order, and he simply smiled, encouraging me to indulge a little. I never expected him to care that much, yet I certainly did. On the inaugural evening, I arranged it. I remained seated until my fingers became all wrinkled. It seemed like evidence that I had succeeded. By the weekend, I was eager to share it with Chase. I kept suggesting how incredible it felt and how it would benefit his muscles post-workout. He continued to dismiss it, claiming he likely wouldn't need it. But following dinner, I inquired once more, and at last he agreed. What was meant to be a light-hearted moment with my son took an unexpected turn when I retrieved my bikini that evening. There was an unsettling feeling. Nothing amiss, just a sense of change. I lingered in front of the mirror more than usual, adjusting the straps, smoothing my hair, and reassuring myself that my excitement for the hot tub was perfectly normal. It was foolish to consider anything beyond that. Nevertheless, my hands trembled slightly as I took the drinks outside. The evening carried a warmth that was unusual, even with the gentle breeze, as I retrieved 2 glasses. Be cautious not to spill and simply place them on the edge of the hot tub. Chase was already there, reclining against the smooth surface as if he were an expert at this. He appeared so at ease, far more than I've witnessed in quite some time. Shoulders relaxed, eyes half closed. "I told you it'd be nice," I remarked, stepping out of my sandals and tugging at my robe. I let it slip off my shoulders, revealing the black bikini I had chosen earlier. His gaze flickered up for a moment, and then returned to the bubbling water. "Tuss." I pretended not to notice and simply dipped my toes in. "To be honest, it was more enjoyable than I anticipated," he remarked, as he swirled his drink. "Yet I'm staking my claim here. The jets are striking me perfectly." "Oh, is that so?" I settled, into the water, reclining as the warmth enveloped me. "Well, don't get too comfortable. That's my place, and I intend to reclaim it. If you take too long, you'll miss out," he replied with a smirk. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Though a smile crept onto my face, it had been some time since we simply sat together, engaging in conversation, sharing laughter and unwinding. It brought to mind those evenings we'd relax on the couch, enjoying classic sitcoms, and his feet would gradually inch over to my side until I finally surrendered and allowed him to stretch out. Yet this moment seemed distinct. Perhaps it was the warmth or the way the water rendered everything sluggish and burdensome. Or perhaps it was simply the way his shoulders occupied his side of the tub as if he scarcely fit. "All right," I replied, moving in a bit closer. "If you're not moving, show me what's so special about this place." We exchanged positions, and I immediately wished I hadn't. The jets targeted every perfect area: my lower back, my shoulders, my legs. He was living the dream. He appeared to understand precisely what he had relinquished. I mentioned it to him, and he took another sip. "You're not getting it back now," he declared, and I took the wager. I leaned in, feigning an attempt to grasp his arm, yet he recoiled, chuckling. In an instant, we found ourselves in a playful struggle, water flying in all directions, as I reached for his arm while he deftly brushed my hands aside. Okay, he replied, raising his drink to shield it. "You win. Just sit down already." "Gladly," I responded, and without a second thought, I settled onto his lap. The laughter faded, and the atmosphere changed. I experienced it. He was pressed up against me, the slight tension in his body causing my heart to race, yet neither of us made a move. I reassured myself that it was nothing significant, merely warmth, moisture, and an uncomfortable proximity. The sound of my pulse echoed in my ears as I adjusted my position, yet with each movement it became increasingly pronounced. "I'm sorry," he said abruptly, his voice soft and trembling. "I didn't mean to." "It's all good." I cut in, attempting to keep it light, just chill. His demeanor suggested anything but relaxation. His face flushed crimson, and he avoided making eye contact with me. A wave of guilt washed over me, yet beneath it lingered a thrill, an undeniable excitement. I appreciated the way he gazed at me, filled with nervousness and uncertainty, as if I possessed a power I hadn't even recognized until that instant. "You know," I remarked, shattering the quiet, "this wouldn't have occurred if you'd simply returned my seat." He chuckled, and the atmosphere lightened slightly, yet the tension lingered. He slipped away from beneath me, muttering something about wanting another drink, and got out of the tub. I observed him depart, my eyes following his form downward. I felt a little unsteady when he went inside, like what just occurred. I reclined, feeling a lingering restlessness. Perhaps it was insignificant, perhaps it was not. Still, it lingered in my mind, the sensation of him beneath me. The way his eyes widened before he averted his gaze, it filled me with a sense of vitality. When he finally emerged, that moment had slipped away, yet my thoughts continued to race. I found myself revisiting the thought, questioning whether it was truly as innocent as I was persuading myself to believe, or if there was something deeper at play. Thank you for your support and for being here with me. I understand that my journey hasn't always been easy to follow, so your time means a lot to me. If you're finding value in this video, or know someone who could connect with my experiences, I'd love for you to hit that like button and subscribe. Your engagement truly motivates me to continue sharing and reassures me that I'm not alone. Now, let's dive back in, I reassured myself. It was just a fleeting moment. Keat consumes too much time it was merely a tub yet. The following morning, I couldn't shake the memory of his gaze, anxious, bashful, perhaps even hinting at something deeper. I was filled with excitement, flattery, and a sense of wonder. Initially, I had no desire to provoke him yet. The thought lingered in my mind. I began with the basics, donning only a tank top without a bra as I prepared breakfast. He remained silent, yet I caught a fleeting look from him. It was so subtle, but it ignited a thrill within me. That playful suggestion evolved into a routine. I began donning leggings as well. I exchanged my sweatpants for low-cut tops and replaced my hoodie. I began to lean down more frequently to gather items and intentionally extended my stretches when I was aware of his gaze. I even crafted reasons to stroll by him, just a bit, nearer than necessary. I convinced myself it was merely a pastime, yet the deeper I delved, the greater my enjoyment became. As Christmas approached, a sense of change lingered in the air. The energy between us was palpable. It transcended mere appearances and attire. It was the playful banter, the way he'd nudge my limits just enough to gauge my reaction. "Be careful, Mom," he remarked one evening as I leaned over the couch in my leggings and tank top. "You're going to brighten someone's day." "Oh, come on," I retorted, rolling my eyes. "You'd think after 2 decades you'd have grown accustomed to me." "That doesn't mean I'm oblivious," he responded. He mentioned it so nonchalantly, as if it were trivial, yet it truly affected me. I sensed my stomach lurch, and averted my gaze to hide my expression from him. Later that evening, after dinner, the topic of the hot tub resurfaced. Without me uttering a word, he swiftly took the initiative to grab drinks and towels. "Just say something." I chose a pink bikini that's even smaller than the one I wore before and waited for him outside. When he came out, his eyes dropped for just a second, but that was enough to make me smile. "Wow, Mom," he said, handing me my drink. "You're about to spill out of that thing." "Oh, come on." I laughed, sinking into the water. "I wouldn't want to traumatize you. Trust me, it'd be more traumatizing for you." The words lingered heavier than the steam rising off the water. I didn't push it, and neither did he, but the tension was palpable. There was a palpable tension between us, so I made a light-hearted comment about switching places again, but he swiftly dismissed the idea. "No way," he said. "Not after last time," I prodded, tilting my head. "What happened last time?" His face turned crimson as he replied, "You know, when Minnie decided to chime in, I couldn't help but laugh, perhaps a bit too heartily. I felt a sense of flattery, and he blushed even deeper, so I decided to let it go." Yet as he emerged, and I caught sight of him through his damp shorts, that familiar rush surged through me once more. Following Christmas, I discovered yet another reason to delay matters. I placed an order with SAA for a few items as a treat for myself, and Chase kindly offered to assist me in getting everything set up. I positioned myself close by as he focused on his task, leaning casually against the doorframe in a crop top and shorts, observing him as he tightened the screws. "Oh, Mr. Handyman," I playfully remarked, letting my fingers glide along his arm. "How will I ever repay you?" He chuckled, brushing it aside, yet I caught his gaze lingering on my legs. Before he returned to the task at hand, I allowed that moment to linger for a while before retreating. The following day, upon completing the construction, I inquired if he was interested in giving it a go. "Join me outside." I said. He paused for a moment, but I urged him on. "Come on, You created this space. You deserve to relish it. That did the trick. I slipped into some shorts and a tank top, going braless, just enough to add a little intrigue. He arrived in gym shorts, shirtless, appearing more like a man than the boy I once raised. We nestled into the settee, our legs touching, and I could sense my heart pounding in my chest. "You've really outdone yourself in here," I remarked, leaning back. "Are you certain there's nothing else I can assist with?" He smiled and replied, "Actually, I do have a small issue." "You could handle that," I remarked, but I was taken aback when he dismissed it with a wave. "I was just joking," he chuckled. "Oh, I assumed our guest had returned," I joked, eyeing his shorts. His gaze darted to my chest for a brief moment, just enough to send a shiver down my spine. "Oh, it seems you're not the only one attracting attention," he retorted, gesturing towards the outline of my nipples, visible through the sheer material. I thrust my chest forward, beaming. It's completely normal after a workout. At that moment, the timer chimed, interrupting the atmosphere, and he was the first to rise. I moved past him as we exited, and he remained still. "Perhaps I'll join you for a workout next time," he said with a smile. "I'd love that," I replied, though. The words carried a weight far beyond what they ought to. That night, I lay in bed, a sense of unease washing over me. A part of me yearned to slam on the brakes and return to the familiar. Yet another part was eager to explore just how far I could, stretch the limits before everything came crashing down. I never intended to mention it, especially not in that way. But after all that's happened, the teasing, the sounds, the glances, I found myself unable to resist. The time had come to confront it, and he felt the same urgency. As I stood in the kitchen rinsing off some dishes, I was still clad in my tank top and shorts from my morning workout when Chase approached me from behind. His hand grazed my lower back while he reached for a glass, and I realized it was no mere accident. I paused for a brief moment, warmth flooding my cheeks, yet I remained where I was. "Your headlights are on," he remarked, a smirk playing on his lips as he gestured toward my chest. "Oh, you noticed," I retorted, striving to maintain a calm tone. "It's somewhat difficult to avoid." That was the moment it occurred. He paused, as if grappling with the right words, and then nonchalantly inquired about what he was permitted to say, what was acceptable and what was not. The atmosphere was so heavy, it seemed as if every breath had been stolen away. He sought approval, testing the waters, and I could no longer feign that this was merely a figment of my imagination. "Words are insignificant," I finally declared. "Feel free to express anything. If you overstep, we'll simply label it as a poor attempt at humor and carry on." He appeared both relieved and anxious. It was evident that he was deep in thought. I hurried through tasks, so I pressed on a little more. I inquired, "What about touching?" He hesitated, gulping, and replied, "I'm fine with hands." I met his gaze and remarked, "Only on my butt, and only if I can reciprocate." He chuckled somewhat uneasily, yet he nodded in agreement. I reassured myself that it was harmless, merely a silly pact between two friends who had always shared a special bond. Yet the moment carried a weight far beyond that. My stomach churned as I faced the dishes, feigning ignorance to the weight of his gaze lingering on me. It wasn't long before we decided to give it a go that evening. As I loaded the dishwasher, I sensed his hand graze my hip, swift yet intentional. I stood up, taken aback, and collided directly with him. He didn't pull away. Rather, he leaned in slightly, allowing me to sense his presence, and I gazed up at him with wide eyes. "Someone's..." Feeling bold, I remarked, my voice emerging softer than intended. "You said it was fine," he retorted, though his cheeks were flushed with embarrassment. I smirked and turned away, yet the warmth lingered, refusing to dissipate even after he departed to rendezvous with another. That evening, I rummaged through my closet and unearthed skirts, dresses, and tops that had been neglected for quite some time. The following morning, I decided to go all out. In hopes that he would take notice, I descended the stairs in my briefest skirt and a blouse without a bra, just the right amount of buttons left undone to add a touch of flirtation. He stood in the kitchen, clad only in his boxers, and as he turned around, his jaw dropped in disbelief. "Is that intended for me?" he inquired, a hint of jest in his voice, yet his gaze remained fixed. "I thought my outfit would be just right." "Match yours?" I teased. Moving in closer, he smiled, yet I could see the shift in his eyes. He was no longer joking. As he strolled past, his hand grazed my lower back, and I leaned in slightly to convey my interest. The following days unfolded in a similar fashion, subtle gestures, prolonged looks, and remarks that danced on the edge of propriety. He became more daring, and I followed suit. "You're going to get me in trouble," he remarked one evening, as I leaned forward to retrieve something from the— "Perhaps I do," I retorted, standing tall and turning to confront him. "Be careful," he warned, though his tone betrayed a hint of thrill rather than genuine concern. As the week drew to a close, the interactions had evolved beyond mere casual remarks or unintentional brushes. It evolved into embraces that extended, just a moment too long, our bodies grazing against one another in the corridors, despite the ample room, his hands resting on my hips, as he leaned in to retrieve something. Each occurrence ignited that familiar excitement, a surge of warmth and intrigue that left me yearning for more. Yet we consistently retreated. We brushed it aside, shared a laugh, and pretended everything was just fine. We were both unsettled by the potential consequences of not putting an end to it, yet neither of us was willing to take that step. Not at this moment, at least. "I'm not sure what's happening," he confessed one evening as we lounged on the couch, feigning interest in the television. "Me neither," I replied, "but it feels good." "Yeah," he said, his gaze fixed on the screen, though his mind seemed elsewhere. "It does." We settled into that silence, no commitments, no choices, merely this quiet understanding to continue to keep the playful banter alive, to discover what might unfold. I was uncertain about the direction it would take, and despite my efforts to maintain a carefree attitude, I found myself pondering how long we could restrain ourselves. It wasn't something I had anticipated for that evening, yet perhaps that was the very reason it became so difficult to halt. We were simply relaxing in the living room, just the two of us. The television was playing, yet our attention was elsewhere. My legs rested over his lap, and he absent-mindedly traced circles on my ankle. It wasn't the first occasion we had found ourselves in that position, yet this moment carried a distinct feeling. He was not. I was serious, not joking or teasing. The tension hung in the air, palpable and oppressive, as we remained silent until Chase broke the stillness with a deep sigh. "I don't understand," he murmured softly. "Get what?" I inquired, fully aware of the answer already. "I can't wrap my head around this, and it's really unsettling." I drew my legs in, sitting up to confront him. He didn't even glance in my direction. His gaze was fixed on the ground, his hands gripping his knees, as if he were desperately trying to keep everything from falling apart. "You're not alone." I admitted, my voice sounding much too loud. Though it was hardly audible, I've been attempting to comprehend it as well. He finally met my gaze, and an intensity in his eyes stirred something deep within me, causing my stomach to churn. "I'm not the only one feeling this way, am I?" he inquired. "I can't be the only one thinking this, right?" "No," I replied. "You're not." We sank into that silence once more, yet this time it felt more oppressive, like a single misplaced word could shatter everything. I ought to have wrapped it up. Right then, brushed it aside with a laugh, shifted the conversation, yet I found myself unable to do so. I had no desire to. "I sense that I'm slipping away from my man," he remarked, tousling his hair with a hand. "Whenever I catch a glimpse of you, it's as if— I can't quite put it into words, but you linger in my thoughts. About you." My breath hitched, and for a moment, words escaped me. Yet when I finally found my voice, the words spilled forth before I had a chance to reconsider. "You're not alone in this," I reiterated. "It's been the same for me." His eyes widened as if my words had caught him off guard. I certainly didn't see that coming either. Yet, once it was released, there was no way to retract it. "I'm at a loss with this," he remarked. His voice softened, and it was really playing with my mind. Half the time I felt the urge to leave just to escape thoughts of him. The other half he trailed off, but I completely understood. My skin was ablaze, and my heart raced so fiercely I was certain he could hear it. I should have told him to stop, that this couldn't continue. But I didn't. "It frightens me too," I said instead. But I hesitated, afraid to complete that thought. Yet I couldn't deceive myself. Not with him. "It makes me feel alive." The words lingered, in the air, and for a moment we remained in quiet contemplation. Chase reclined, allowing his head to sink into the softness of the couch. "God, Mom," he sighed, dragging his hands down his face before meeting my gaze again. "What on earth are we doing?" I honestly replied. "I don't know, but I don't want to stop." He looked at me as if he was searching for something, perhaps permission or reassurance that he wasn't losing his grip. All I could offer him was honesty. "We'll keep it casual," I said gently, just as we had discussed earlier. "It's not a big deal. All right? We must exercise caution, and if things escalate, we simply have to put a halt to it." He nodded, yet the conflict in his eyes remained evident. To be honest, I experienced it as well. I found myself questioning how much longer we could maintain the facade of harmless fun, yet in this moment I craved it deeply. I craved the way he gazed at me, the way he made me feel alive. "I ought to get some sleep," he remarked abruptly, rising to his feet and tousling his hair with his hand. "Yeah," I responded. Yet neither of us made a move. He hesitated for a brief moment, as if expecting me to utter something that would make him stay, but I remained silent. As he turned and walked away, I found myself alone contemplating whether everything between us had already spiraled out of control. That night, sleep eluded me as I tossed and turned, the echoes of our conversations swirling in my mind until everything became a blur. A sense of relief washed over me, as if a burden had been removed. Now that the truth was laid bare, yet another part of me felt more encumbered than ever before. I had crossed a boundary, even if it existed solely in my mind, and I was at a loss for how to retract it. The following morning, I discovered Chase in the kitchen. He stood there already dressed. He glanced up from his cup of coffee at the counter as I entered the room. For a moment, we both remained silent, but it lacked the awkwardness of the previous night. Just a serene morning. His voice carried a gentler quality than normal. I took a mug and filled it, attempting to maintain a steady hand, aware of his gaze on me, causing my heart to race. However, on this occasion, I maintained my composure. He began to mention last night, but I interrupted him. "We need to talk," I said, pivoting to meet his gaze and placing my cup on the table. "We must embrace honesty." He nodded, yet there was an air of discomfort about him, as if he were uncertain of my intentions. To be honest, I had my doubts as well, but we could no longer maintain the facade that everything was okay. That was clear. "I cannot bear the thought of losing you," I said. "You won't," he said swiftly, stepping nearer. "I promise. However, we cannot continue down this path. Whatever this is," my voice trembled, yet I continued. "It's affecting both of us, and I can't allow it to deteriorate to the point where we can't resolve it." "What shall we do next?" he inquired, his tone taut. It pained me just enough to cause my heart to ache. This time, we established clear boundaries. I inhaled deeply, compelling myself to maintain eye contact. No more physical contact, no more playful banter. If either of us begins to sense that we're overstepping boundaries, we must communicate immediately. No ignoring it. He nodded slowly. Yet the hesitation in his eyes was unmistakable. He was reluctant to release whatever this connection was between us. And truthfully, I felt the same way. Yet I was aware that it was necessary for us to proceed. I extended my hand and held it softly. I require your presence. I want you to understand that my feelings for you remain unchanged. Your presence brings me a sense of vitality and recognition that I will cherish forever. Yet I can't continue searching for that sensation in this manner. I must discover what is lacking in my life, beyond this home, beyond our relationship. His shoulders relaxed slightly, and for the first time in days, I caught a glimpse of the boy I had nurtured. The one who relied on me, sought comfort in me, and admired me. Not the man who had been regarding me as an outsider. I understand, he replied, gripping my hand in return. I share that sentiment. I hesitated to find the right words, yet I assured him that we would be all right, and I truly believed it. We must maintain it as it is. He pulled me into a familiar hug tight, like all the ones before. But when he let go, it felt different, lighter, as if we had finally shed all the tension that had been pressing down on us for weeks. Later, after he went to meet some friends, I stood in front of the mirror and truly examined myself. Not just my body, but everything. The gentleness in my eyes, and the way my hair fell. It enveloped my shoulders, as if my skin radiated light. After so many years, I finally felt beautiful and desirable, and it wasn't truly due to Chase. He brought back the feeling of being seen. I made a vow to myself that I wouldn't allow that feeling to fade. I would seek out ways to nurture it through fresh experiences, new connections, and perhaps even a new relationship when the time felt right. However, it would not be with him. It simply wasn't possible. As Chase returned home that evening, we seamlessly slipped back into our familiar rhythm. Dinner, television, and easy conversations. For the first time, it felt effortless and at ease again, as if we were rediscovering our connection, despite having lost something in the process. As I lay in bed that night, my mind wandered to the question, what if? What if we had pushed it to the next level? What if we ventured beyond that boundary? What if that aspect of my being that craves understanding never truly faded away? I find myself uncertain about my current situation, yet I recognize the chaos surrounding it. That's the reason I'm putting this out there. Perhaps someone else understands. If you've experienced something similar or know someone who has, I would appreciate your thoughts on it. It can be challenging to gain clarity when you're deeply immersed in the situation. Just a reminder, loneliness can take you to unforeseen destinations, so tread carefully before you step over a boundary that may be irreversible. I appreciate your attention. Your insights are valuable, so please feel free to express them.